She stepped onto the dance floor like she owned the world, hair pinned high, lips stained wine red, and eyes locked on him. Not me. Him. And I just stood there, like an idiot, like a placeholder, like the man she married out of convenience, but never out of desire. I didn't say a word when he brushed her hand at the appetizer table. I bit my tongue when she kept leaning in to hear his jokes that somehow didn't need to be whispered. I even smiled when she introduced him as Dean from work, like I hadn't heard his name enough already in our kitchen, in her texts, in the way she checked herself in the mirror twice before every company event. But when she let him pull her onto the dance floor for the second time, after I told her how it made me feel the first time, I finally spoke. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cause a scene. I just said it quiet and plain. If you dance with him again, don't expect me to be here when you return. She paused, looked at me like I was a confused dog barking at thunder. Then she laughed, short, sharp, and cruel. You're not serious, she said, already turning away. But I was. She didn't know that while she was swirling under string lights with someone else's hands on her waist, my phone buzzed in my pocket, not with a message, but with a confirmation. A private investigator I hired last week had just sent me a photo of her and Dean in a parking lot 3 nights ago, not dancing, and certainly not laughing. That's when the numbness faded, and something colder replaced it. Not rage, not sorrow, clarity, because this wasn't a dance. It was the finale, and I was about to end the music. She twirled under the hanging lights while I stood frozen, clutching a half-empty glass of cheap champagne that tasted like metal and betrayal. People around me clapped and smiled, completely unaware that the man grinning beside my wife had his hands somewhere they didn't belong just 3 nights ago. And Lacey, my wife, was laughing like she hadn't felt warmth in years, like I was just some extra in a movie she no longer wanted to star in. But I didn't storm out. I didn't scream. No dramatic speeches or broken glass or thrown rings. Instead, I left the reception with the kind of silence you can only earn after years of being ignored. I walked straight to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and opened the message again. The investigator I'd hired, a soft-spoken guy named Rodney who always looked like he just walked out of a courtroom drama, had sent me 3 photos and a 6-second video. Each one was a tiny blade. They were parked outside a downtown jazz bar, the same one where we used to go when we were first dating. She always said it made her feel like we were in a black and white movie. That night, Dean had his hand on the small of her back, guiding her into the shadows behind the building. The video didn't need sound. The way she pulled him closer said enough. I stared at that screen so long I forgot to breathe. My chest felt like it was caving in. But weirdly, I wasn't surprised. I was just done. Not heartbroken. Not even angry anymore. Just emptied out. Like someone had finally turned off the faucet I'd been trying to patch with duct tape and denial for the past year. Instead of going home, I drove to a 24-hour diner on the edge of town and ordered a slice of cherry pie. Not because I was hungry, I just didn't know where else to go. That's when I started making calls. Quiet ones. To a lawyer. To a locksmith. To a storage unit company. I didn't know what my plan was yet. I just knew I needed to start moving. The waitress, probably sensing something was off, kept giving me refills without asking. At 2:23 a.m., I sent my wife a text. Don't wait up. She didn't reply. By the time the sun came up, I had packed half my things into cardboard boxes, changed the password on our joint savings account, and scheduled a consultation with a divorce attorney named Margot, recommended by Rodney, who clearly had done this dance with other men before. That night, when she walked in through the front door, heels in hand, hair messy, and skin glowing like she'd just stepped out of someone else's fantasy, she looked around and asked, "What happened to your stuff?" I just looked at her. "You danced," I said. She blinked, confused. "So what?" And I walked past her without another word. She didn't know it yet, but the music had already stopped. She stood there in the doorway, barefoot now, her fancy dress bunched at the hips and her makeup slightly smudged, not from emotion, but from a night lived a little too carelessly. At first, she didn't panic. She just gave that little half-laugh she always used when she thought I was being dramatic. "Seriously, Emery? You packed up a few boxes, and now what? You're moving out because I danced?" She dropped her keys onto the table like nothing mattered, like I hadn't seen the way she looked at him, like I hadn't seen what they did outside that jazz bar. I didn't respond. I just walked into the bedroom, zipped up the last duffel bag, and hoisted it over my shoulder. That's when her voice cracked. Wait, you're not actually. I turned slowly. You thought I was joking, but I warned you. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she looked scared. Not angry, not amused, just scared, like the consequences were finally catching up to the performance. She followed me down the hallway like a lost child. Emery, it was just a dance. You can't seriously be doing this. I mean, God, he's married too. I paused at the door. So he's cheating on his wife with mine. That's supposed to make me feel better? Now she was crying. Full-on tears. The kind she used to save for funerals and old rom-coms. Nothing happened. I swear. I got carried away. It didn't mean anything. I stared at her, feeling absolutely nothing. No heartbreak. No anger. Just a void. I think that's what hurt her most, the emptiness behind my eyes. She reached for my hand. Please. I messed up, okay? But we can talk about this. We always do. I pulled my hand back. That's the problem. We always talk about it. You cross a line, I whine about it. You cry, I cave. Rinse and repeat. I think I was more committed to saving this marriage than you were to being in it. She sobbed into her palms, then suddenly snapped up, voice rising. So you're just walking away from everything over a stupid dance? No, I said coldly. I'm walking away from a marriage where I have to compete to be your husband. She stood there stunned, her mouth slightly open. I closed the door behind me without another word. That night, I slept on the floor of the storage unit beside my things, listening to the sound of silence. It was the most peaceful sleep I'd had in months. But I wasn't done. The next morning, I reached out to someone I never thought I'd need, Dean's wife. Because if anyone deserved the truth, it was her. I didn't reach out to Dean's wife out of revenge. Not at first. That's what I keep telling myself anyway. Maybe it was selfish. Maybe I just needed someone else who wouldn't look at me like I was overreacting, or dramatic, or weak for finally breaking under the weight of all the little humiliations. Her name was Tessa, and from what I'd seen online, she looked like the kind of woman who made life feel organized just by walking into a room. Neat bun, clean lines, the type who color codes her planner. I wasn't sure how she'd react to a message from a random man claiming her husband might be cheating with his wife. But she wrote back within 7 minutes. Can we talk? That was all she said, but the period at the end felt like a door slamming shut. We met at a small park, neutral ground, daylight, nothing dramatic. When she approached, she already looked like she knew. Her shoulders were stiff, and her eyes had that tired, practiced sadness, like betrayal wasn't new to her. I handed her my phone without a speech, without preamble. I just opened the gallery with the photos and the 6-second video and let her take it from my hands. She didn't gasp, didn't cry. She just watched the video twice, closed her eyes, and whispered, "He promised me he ended it." My stomach clenched. Ended it. That meant this wasn't new. This wasn't spontaneous. This was a pattern, a habit, a secret life she'd been patching together, hoping it would hold this time. Tessa, I didn't know. I started, but she held up a hand. No, thank you for telling me. I'm so tired. Then she did something that caught me completely off guard. She apologized. I'm sorry your wife dragged you into their mess. I didn't expect compassion. I didn't deserve it. But hearing someone say out loud that I hadn't imagined everything, that I wasn't just the insecure, overreacting husband she'd painted me as, felt like someone finally loosening a knot in my chest that had been there for years. Then things took a turn I didn't see coming. Tessa told me she already knew about a previous affair. Not with my wife, with someone else at his gym. She confronted him. He swore he'd change, and she believed him because she wanted their kids to grow up in one home. I wasn't forgiving him, she said. I was delaying the collapse. And now that collapse had a name, Lacey. But here's where it got really wild. Right before she walked away, Tessa said, "You should know. If he's doing this again, then there are more messages, more photos, more nights. And not just with her. Not just with her." I felt like the ground dropped out from under me. I had been focused on one betrayal, the one that hit me personally. But this was bigger, messier, a whole web I didn't even want to touch. As I stood there reeling, my phone buzzed again. It was Lacey. 10 missed calls. And a text. "We need to talk now." Not an apology. Not a confession. A demand. And she had no idea that the truth I'd uncovered wasn't just going to expose her. It was going to expose everything she'd been hiding long before the dance floor, long before Dean, long before I issued that warning she laughed off. I didn't answer her calls. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I finally understood something I should have seen a long time ago. Every conversation with Lacey was just another performance. Another chance for her to twist the truth, cry just enough to soften my spine, and convince me that I was the one overreacting. But this time, I had nothing left to give her. The leash was cut. The fog was gone. Still, I drove back to the house the next day. Not for her, for me. I had a bag to grab, a few documents I forgot, and maybe, deep down, I wanted to see if she'd even try to look me in the eye after everything. When I stepped through the door, she was already waiting, sitting on the couch like someone waiting for a job interview, back stiff, hands clasped together, but her face was all theater. "Oh my God, Emery, thank you for coming back. Please, just let me explain. I swear it's not what you think." I didn't sit. I didn't even close the door behind me. "Then tell me what it is. Tell me what I saw, what I read. Why Dean's wife already knew your name." She flinched. "That told me everything." "You met with her?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper, as if that were the betrayal. "I did more than that," I replied. "I showed her the proof. I asked her questions. She had answers you conveniently skipped." Her mouth opened, but I cut her off. "Stop. Don't lie to me with tears. I know this wasn't just one night, or one flirtation, or one stupid dance. It was weeks, maybe months. And not just him, right?" The silence was suffocating. And then, she cracked. "Okay," she blurted, standing up suddenly. "Yes, fine. It wasn't just him. But it wasn't serious, Emery. It never meant anything." I think that line, that empty, casual sentence, finally killed whatever little part of me still wanted to believe she had a soul I could reach. "You're standing in our home, telling me you've slept around more than once, and your defense is that it didn't mean anything?" She stepped forward, reaching for me, like proximity could erase betrayal. "I was lonely," she said. "You shut down months ago. You were always working, always tired. You made me feel like a ghost in my own house." I stepped back. "So instead of talking to me, you decided to build your own haunted mansion behind my back." Her expression hardened. "Don't act like you were some perfect husband." "I'm not," I said. "But I didn't cheat." The silence stretched. And then she asked a question so absurd it nearly made me laugh. "Can't we just move past this?" That's when I realized she wasn't sorry. She was cornered. The performance was for survival, not redemption. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing the lifestyle, the image, the control. So I gave her a smile. Not out of kindness, but out of finality. "No, Lacey, we're not moving past this. We're moving out of it." I turned and walked out the door, this time not with pain in my chest, but with something sharper, purpose. Because I wasn't just walking away. I was preparing to take back everything she thought she could keep. I wasn't interested in revenge. Not yet. I just wanted out. Clean. Quiet. Permanent. But getting out of a marriage, especially one where you were the only one trying, isn't as simple as walking away. There were shared bank accounts, property titles, and, worst of all, a rental storage unit under both our names. That was where she insisted we keep all the clutter she didn't want in the house anymore. Old photo albums, furniture from my dad's place, boxes labeled with my handwriting and memories she never valued. I hadn't thought about that place in over a year. Until my lawyer, Margot, sharp, no nonsense, and probably smarter than both of us combined, asked if there was anything she might try to hide, remove, or destroy. That's when I remembered the storage unit. I drove there the next day, keycard still working, gates sliding open like nothing had changed. I unlocked the unit, expecting to see the same musty rows of boxes and stacked furniture. At first glance, it looked untouched, but as I stepped inside, something immediately felt wrong. Too clean, too organized, and a new set of plastic bins I definitely didn't put there. Curiosity won. Inside the top bin, I found notebooks. Handwritten, but not mine. I opened one, and my stomach twisted. They were journals. Her journals. Some dated months ago. Others from just a few weeks before the wedding. Every page was like peeling back a mask I hadn't known she was wearing. She wrote about how she never felt chosen, how she resented how easy I made things. One line said, "Emery never challenges me. I need chaos to feel alive." Another entry, "Dean isn't the first. But he's the one I thought I could get caught with and still control the narrative. I couldn't breathe. These weren't confessions. They were blueprints. Cold, calculated reflections of someone who wasn't lost. She was orchestrating the whole time. She had been documenting it like it was a game. And I was the idiot playing by rules that didn't exist. At the bottom of the bin, taped to one of the notebooks, was a printed prenup draft I'd forgotten we once discussed before marriage. I never pushed it, and we agreed to skip it. But she had kept a signed version, unsigned by me, but signed by her. Notes in the margins. Plans. Even estimates of what she thought she'd get in a divorce. She wasn't trying to salvage the marriage back in that living room. She was buying time. I didn't leave the unit for nearly an hour. I just sat there, reading, rereading, trying to convince myself this was real. That the woman who cried in front of our friends during our vows had planned her exit strategy years in advance. And worse, had contingency partners. I called Margot. We're not just filing, I told her. We're freezing every asset. She's going to fight dirty. So I need to be ready. Margot paused and said quietly, "You're not the first man I've seen wake up too late, but you're the first to wake up this angry and this prepared." As I drove home, not to our house, but to the small apartment I had rented on the side without telling anyone, I realized something. She didn't just betray me. She studied how to do it without consequences. But she made one mistake. She underestimated how dangerous a quiet man can be when he stops forgiving. I waited 2 days before I told her. Not out of mercy. I needed to be ready. Margot had already frozen our accounts. I moved every important asset into a trust with my name only. I transferred ownership of my car, canceled the joint credit card, and submitted the first round of divorce paperwork. I even spoke to a forensic accountant to double-check our finances. And through it all, I kept calm. Like a man organizing his own escape from a prison he didn't realize he built. Then I made the call. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just said her name, slowly and flatly, and told her 6 words she wasn't ready to hear. "I found your journals. All of them." There was silence on the line. Not surprise. Not confusion. Just tension, like she was holding her breath, trying to decide which mask to wear this time. Finally, she spoke. "Emery, those were never meant to be read?" I finished. "Yeah, I figured. Especially the parts where you compared my predictability to a dull background hum. Or how you referred to me as emotionally house-trained." "I was venting," she said quickly, her voice suddenly high and defensive. "Everyone vents. That doesn't mean it was true." "Oh no," I replied. "It means it was. That's the most honest I've seen you in years. You wrote about your lovers like puzzle pieces. About controlling the fallout. About rehearsing tears in the mirror. Who were you venting to? Yourself, or the person you actually are?" "Emery, please," she whispered, like suddenly playing the soft-spoken wife would rewind the past. "You don't understand. I was lost. I was afraid you didn't want me anymore." "No, Lacey, you weren't lost. You were deliberate. You planned everything. Even now, I bet you're mentally sorting through what to say next to keep me tethered. But it's over. You don't get to be the narrator anymore." Her voice broke into a soft, shaky sob. "I never wanted it to end like this." "Then maybe you shouldn't have storyboarded the ending like a novel." I hung up, and then, almost exactly 30 minutes later, I received an email from her attorney. The subject line read, "Settlement proposal, urgent." She was already trying to spin it, trying to control the story, the narrative, the damage. But what she didn't realize was that I hadn't told her everything. I hadn't mentioned that I made copies of the journals, or that Tessa, Dean's wife, had offered to make a sworn statement about Lacey's role in the affair that wrecked 2 marriages, or that I'd found an old burner phone in her desk drawer that she thought I'd never search. I had everything I needed, and I wasn't going to destroy her. I was going to let her destroy herself by giving her exactly what she asked for: attention, exposure, and an audience. And it was almost time to take it public. Her lawyer's proposal was laughable. She wanted half of everything. Half of my savings. Half of my retirement fund. The one I started building when I was 22, back when she was still bar hopping and pretending adulthood was a suggestion. She wanted the house, too. Said she was emotionally attached. Ironic, considering she'd emotionally detached herself from our marriage years ago. Margot, my lawyer, didn't even blink. "She's bluffing," she said. "This is a panic play. She knows she's cornered." And she was, because I sent back a counteroffer with receipts. The journals. Screenshots of texts I recovered from the burner phone. A notarized letter from Dean's wife, detailing the timeline of their affair and how Lacey had reached out to her, trying to convince her to just let it go. The icing on the cake? A digital log of Lacey's location history from a shared app she forgot I still had access to. It told a story far more honest than her apologies. The moment her lawyer received that file, everything changed. 3 hours later, I got a revised proposal, this time from her. She was suddenly willing to walk away with only a few pieces of furniture and her personal belongings. No claim to my accounts. No attempt to keep the house. No courtroom battle. She didn't even want to meet. It ended in silence. Just a document, signed and submitted. No, I'm sorry. No, I was wrong. Just a quiet white flag in digital ink. And honestly, that was the best apology I could have asked for. But here's where things get unexpectedly beautiful. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I got a message from Tessa, Dean's now ex-wife. She said she was thinking of moving out of state and wanted to meet for coffee before she left. Just two people who went through the same kind of storm, sitting in the eye of it for a brief moment. We talked for hours. Not about them, about us. Our careers. Our regrets. Our weird coping mechanisms. Turns out we both eat cereal at night when we can't sleep. There wasn't any tension. No romantic undertone. Just connection. A kind I hadn't felt in years. She left for Colorado a few days later. But we still talk. And maybe one day, we'll see each other again. Or maybe we won't. That part doesn't matter. What matters is that I didn't stay broken. I didn't let her betrayal define me. I didn't become bitter or cruel or cold. I just started over. Quietly. Patiently. On my own terms. And sometimes, that's the best kind of revenge. Not destruction, not exposure, not even justice. Just peace. Thanks for listening. If you've ever felt like the quiet one, the overlooked one, the one they thought would never leave, let this be your sign. You can leave. And better yet, you can win.